accounted for. Our Tuesday tea timers. And as always, I just like to welcome each of us from all of our ages and ethnicities and our cultural heritage and our religious backgrounds and our socioeconomic group and our abilities, our sexual orientation and our gender identity, that we come together, how diverse we are, and also acknowledging the land that we are each on, recognizing the place where we sit as including the Clackamas, the Cowlitz, the tribes of the Grand Ronde, and the Siletz peoples, and the Cowlitz where Sherry is. No, the Chinook, Miwok, the Miwok where Sherry is. And all the indigenous people of the lands that were forced to leave for the benefit of us, the colonizers and the settlers. And just the personal work that we do for ourselves of noticing how do we benefit by living on this land, and that it is traditional territory of the indigenous people. So may we have appreciation and recognize the inherent worthiness and the healing that can come out of just even the acknowledgement. And also in this lineage of ancestors, as you heard me yesterday, I like to include the other Buddhist traditions, the Asian ancestors of the Buddhist lineages that were the immigrants who came here in the 19th century, the significant amounts of East Asian that arrived in the United States, and immigrants from China that came in the early 1800s, and those that began arriving in large numbers following the California Gold Rush. And the immigrant Buddhist congregations in North America are really diverse. As the Asian Buddhists that settled here, there in the U.S., there's the Sri Lankan Buddhists and the Chinese Buddhists and the Japanese and the Korean and the Thai and the Cambodian and the Vietnamese. And the Immigrant Act of 1965 increased a whole lot of immigrants. And it included Vietnam and the Theravadan practicing countries of Southeast Asia. And so they were all here longer than the Western lineage of Buddhism that most of us have connected in with now. And I also give thanks to those who have gone before us and settled the American Buddhist communities here on the East and the West Coast and every place in between. So we are not alone in our discovery of paying attention to what really goes on in the mind, and that we are guided by countless ancestors. And some of them are named and some of them are unnamed, and we too will become ancestors. So we gather together like this and we sit on our own so that we can really conduct our lives in a way that merit the veneration of our descendants. So we are fortunate to be here now in this very birth. And maybe someday future generations will recite our names. And in the meantime, may we remember all of those that have influenced us and supported us in being here in this place as we settle into our bodies and let gravity settle us into our seats, and let this sound arrive to the ears. The calling of the bell that has gone on for centuries and centuries. ourselves have this foundation of the levity of the humor and the smiles that brought us to this place together. And may that feeling of mudita, joyousness, hold us and surround us so that we can look clearly at what happens in the mind and not fall prey to being judgmental or embarrassed or whatever, just alert. Alert and aware of what's arising. Settling in whatever way you settle best to start your practice. It could be by allowing a sense of relaxation to flow through the body at first. Sitting with our eyes slightly open or closed. Whatever way works for us to maybe keep some of the hindrances at bay. Acknowledging the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the historical being as well as the opportunity to realize that awakening is possible in this very life, as was demonstrated by Gautama Buddha, and to all of those others who have become enlightened since he has. The teachings that have been handed down from monks and monastics, lay people, nuns, preserved and spread out through various countries, all understanding the Four Noble Truths. As we explore them for ourselves with each breath, noticing the characteristics of anicca, anatta, dukkha, that suffering is brought on by clinging and grasping, which we see directly each moment that we let mindfulness be present. We may be using the breath at the nostrils or feeling the breath at the diaphragm as it rises and falls. Or maybe a touch point where the hands are touching or where the buttocks or the feet are touching. Just reminding ourselves to return to that single object if we find ourselves lost in thought. Noticing if what might arise could be unskillful or unwholesome, letting it fall away naturally, watching it go as we incline the heart and mind toward the wholesome, toward kindness and compassion. Letting just enough energy and effort to be present, along with mindfulness. Sometimes we can notice and prevent unwholesome states that haven't yet arisen. Loosening our grip on greed and hatred and delusion, just noticing the times that we might find the mind free from those defilements. Even when we're sitting under favorable conditions, we have moments when greed and hatred and delusion arise. And so it's good to notice mind states that perhaps do not have the defilements present. One of the first aspects of right effort is the understanding of how the mind works. And one of the most pragmatic descriptions of freedom, of nibbana, is the mind that is free from defilements. And that's what we're nurturing. so we use wise attention on the different objects that arise in our senses. And to avoid habits of reactivity or being sort of careless or unattentive, these latent states can arise. So we are diligent with mindfulness and awareness as often as we can by letting go of something as soon as we see it arise if it's unskillful. Noticing attachment to pleasant, noticing aversion to unpleasant. And so we just, with kindness and compassion, have wise and sustained attention as we weaken these deeply conditioned habits of the mind, one breath at a time, one mindful moment at a time. we notice what's happening in the mind right now. What's the attitude of the mind right now? We can attend to whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, or maybe we're sort of lost in confusion. We can notice that. That's a moment of awakening where we notice the feeling tone of something. We can go on from there with mindfulness, awareness, and wisdom. Every moment we can choose whether we're embracing wholesomeness or unwholesomeness. And then we can experience the results of that choice. And as we choose the wholesome, that good mental environment for happiness in the next moment, as we've been speaking of previously, the continuing effects of past choices and present choices. So we have these billions of fairly pure moments, and we have a second of happiness. And these mental habits that develop second by second add up to make longer moments of happiness. And so we have these little teeny choices, billions of them happening in seconds. We can see these mind moments arise and pass away. As we refine our practice. And we can just, it's enough just to become aware of the general feeling, the general trend of our thoughts as they occur. And that's where we continue choosing wholesome mental states moment by moment and letting go of the unwholesome ones. So we want to see clearly when greed arises in the mind, or when ill will arises in the mind. Or when we're confused and we don't know what's arising. And if we keep doing this, the Buddha has told us that cultivating the wholesome mental states moment by moment and continuing to arouse ourselves, making effort and stirring energy and exerting just enough in the mind, that the unwholesome ones stop returning. And so we have this practice that we just keep returning to moment after moment, day after day, knowing that we are benefiting from the practice, no matter what arises, no matter what we are seeing. If we see it clearly with mindfulness, we're a little less likely to be attached and fall into the trap of believing our thoughts or believing that our thoughts belong to us. And we can let some of those unwholesome states that arise be filled instead with wholesome ones. Loving kindness, generosity, compassion. And so the more we make this gentle effort of holding ourselves dear, being kind to ourselves and having compassion to for ourselves, we might notice the freer and clearer we might be of the pain that our minds has generated. And so we experience more happiness as a natural result. So may we take a few moments before we close to let this continued sense of kindness be nurtured. This wholesome mental state of generosity, kindness, and compassion. May we allow ourselves to rest in it. In whatever way that is, through phrases, through a feeling, a sensed feeling. May we be at ease. May I be at ease. May I have well-being. And may I let this sense of goodwill flow to another being of my choice. Whoever comes to mind, a friend, a benefactor, maybe a neutral person. letting this sense of generosity, feelings of kindness and compassion, include them in our hearts. Wishing them also to be relaxed and at ease and have causes of happiness. And find compassion for themselves when things are difficult. May we generate from this place of stillness within, even as chaos sometimes is around us, or on days like today when the wind is swirling around us. It can sometimes ruffle our states of mind. May we find stability in our center of allowing these feelings of generosity, compassion that we include for ourselves and another person. May it flow to others. May we include others in our hearts. Another friend or another benefactor, a teacher, a being that we've derived benefit from. Seeing them happy and healthy and sending thoughts of well-wishing, goodwill, and kindness to include them in this space of our hearts. With whatever phrase works for you, or bodily sensations, memory of joyousness that can include this kindness for others. Knowing that as we generate this kindness, these thoughts of well-being and goodness and compassion to others, it's a reciprocal cycle. We receive back what it is that we're broadcasting from our hearts. Especially coming from this more concentrated place without the hindrances being as close as they sometimes are. May we let this goodwill that's generated within our entire container of our breath, that this well-wishing can include other people that we don't know, could be neighbors, people in business establishments around us, service providers, people that we sometimes see, but maybe their presence doesn't even register on our radar until we're thinking of it now. That person that I saw yesterday on the street, or that whole group of people in the grocery store when I was checking out. Letting this vast energy of the heart include all beings. Some are known, some are unknown. Some are seen, some are unseen. Those that are living, those that are dead, those that are yet to be born, those that swim and crawl and walk and fly. May all beings everywhere be free from harm, safe and protected, and have ease. May we include them in our hearts, this preciousness of human birth, as we let go of ill will and grasping and clinging and confusion. May we let this open-heartedness include others, and know that the generosity, the goodwill of our practice is of great benefit to all beings. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino ukapitava maruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things are subject to impermanence. They arise and pass away. And seeing this clearly with mindfulness is the greatest happiness, which is peace. And thank you so much for your practice. It brings me great joy.